Welcome everybody to another episode of Health and Safety Unplugged, and today I am very lucky to be joined by Bede, who for some of you I'm sure will be a familiar face. We see on many social posts and many social events, particularly here in Canterbury and around New Zealand. So Bede, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Perhaps I should allow you the opportunity to introduce yourself to those who perhaps haven't had a chance to see you before.
Sure. Well, so hi everybody, my name's Bede. The most important things in my life are my wife and kids. I've been married coming up 30 years. I have three adult children, 23, 21 and 19. They would not enjoy me sharing their names. So I have three adult children and a cat called Jemima and a dog called Lottie. And those furry children are the delight of our family and our lives. But in terms of my professional gig, I'm the founder of a company called C Digital. C Digital replaces security guards on industrial sites primarily, and we protect $5.5 billion worth of assets every night, literally from Kaitaia to Bluff. We have a big site in Kaitaia and a smaller one in Bluff. And how I got into this AI thing was a number of years ago. One of our logistics clients, one Friday afternoon, had a 16-year-old young person climb on a forklift, and while racing it, rolled and it killed him instantly on their site. And when the management of that organisation played back the CCTV footage of not only that event but the preceding months, they realised that, hey, this stuff has been going on. And then for months, and these guys have been racing forklifts and yahooing and, doing stuff that you don't want. And then WorkSafe requested footage from us and whacked them with a whole pile of events involving people and forklifts and containers and pallets and risky activities. And the CEO of that business and I sat down once the dust had settled, and it would be fair to say the CEO was deeply upset by this event, and would still say he's deeply affected by it. And he looked at me across the table and he said, "How did I not know? How did we not know that this was going on?" And then he followed it up with a question. He was like, "Well, how would we know to even look? We were unaware in the first place." And that led to the creation of SEO, which is the Latin word to know. That's what it means. Now, it's a bodged SEO. SCIO is the actual Latin word, but that wasn't an available domain name, so I just changed it to SEO, SEEO, which looks cool and still has the same meaning. So that's what SEO means, and that's it's an adjunct to our security business that we have all these CCTV cameras recording stuff on sites. And it essentially answers the question for our customers is, what is going on in your area, like where you have critical risk controls, where you've invested a whole pile of time and energy identifying them, and then creating controls and communicating those controls to people and putting in fencing or putting in guarding or whatever. Those controls invariably, unless you can completely engineer out the task, they involve an element of behaviour. Humans need to cooperate in some way for the control to be effective. And one of the greatest challenges, I was speaking to a senior health and safety person in Melbourne last week, and he said, "Bede, I effectively do not know." He said, "I have no trustworthy lead indicators of my critical risk controls and whether people are doing what they're supposed to and what I hope they're doing." And SEO fills in that gap. It actually tells you, do people do what you hope? Does your work as imagined line up with your work as done? And invariably, 99.9% of the time, I'm afraid to declare, they don't. And even in we recently did a project in a trial for an organisation in a highly controlled area. They've got risk controls. They've got engineering controls up the wazoo, and we ended up answering the question, what gives you such great certainty that they work?
Mm-hmm.
And even with that, SEEO found employees racing each other to complete the task.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't racing from a perspective of anything other than probably boredom.
Yeah.
The task is boring.
Mm-hmm.
And it's highly controlled and it's highly manual. How are you going to make it fun? Well, they've made it fun by racing. So SEO uncovered that, even though the rest of the stuff was like fabulous, it's all working.
That's so interesting, because I imagine that it's true to say that the nature of the system with the 24/7 cameras, you've got eyes on the ground continuously, right? So it's solving the common problem of inspections or observations which happen on a routine or sometimes non-routine, but they're only snapshots at moments in time.
Correct.
Whereas you've got a live feed, you've got the data that's just being covered all the time.
It's a 24/7 observer. Yep. And without the Hawthorne effect.
Yes.
So, because I'm sure your audience would say every time I go to site, everything's perfect, and I can pat myself on the back and go, aren't I doing a fantastic job? I'm afraid to declare that is called the Hawthorne effect, where people, when they're being watched, they will comply and they will do whatever you wish for them to do. So, it's a 24/7 observer, and that also generates data. How many events, what is their danger level or salience, that you can then use to inform two really important things. And the number one thing is it informs work design. So you have two choices as a health and safety professional. You can either change the work or change the worker. And SEO assists you with both. I think the most meaningful insights that people have got have been around change the work, where you get to see. So we have an organisation who have taken. I actually pulled all of their data, and if you look at the first sort of year of their deployment, it would be fair to say that it utterly lacked leadership. So the operational manager put it in and then said to me, I hate it. And I'm like, which is bad news when you're a vendor, right? You don't want that. I hate it.
Yes.
And I had lunch with him and I said, why do you hate it? Oh, because every one of those events I have to do something with. It creates work for me. And I'm sitting there going, well, that's the whole point. But I didn't say that. He ended up leaving the business, and then we got a new person who said, all right, we will engage for a month and then we're going to decide whether we keep this or not. And so he got a person to engage in it, and in the first 10 minutes they found an event so serious that it was gross misconduct.
Right.
I don't know what the person did, but it was something horrendous, so horrendous that they marched the person off the site. So, and that was in the first 10 minutes of looking. And then what they did is they engaged in this fantastic change leadership program where they looked at the desire lines of forklifts, where forklifts were backing across walkways, and where all these events around when shifts were changing. And they looked at these things and went, okay, so forklifts naturally want to back across this walkway. We actually need to do something. So they put a little piece of walkway barrier there. And that immediately changed the desire line. The forklift can no longer back there, so it had to take a slightly different route.
Right.
And then they said, well, CEO's now detecting people behind the barrier who are still close to a forklift, but we know they're not going to be hit. So they said we need to remove that barrier from detection. So we went, okay, that area we're not going to detect anymore because it's safe. And things like that, where we changed the technology to see what was being tracked. There were some physical changes made to the work design. And then they had consistent toolbox meetings. Every day they had CEO events presented onto a TV in their toolbox meetings, and they went, look at this. Here's a person approaching a forklift that's backing backwards, and they're approaching from the side. See how you're in the turning circle when it started turning towards you. So all these examples of change the way you deal with these forklifts things, please.
Yes.
And that's the behavioural thing. And then what started to happen is that the danger level, or salience, we call it salience, the salience level of events started dropping. And so their data, the data shows, so I'm going to go this side. So this is the pre-intervention, and it's like this, and it's all high. They're all over the show. Then we draw a line, and then it's up here, and then it just starts like this. And the scatter plot diagram shows an exponential drop in the number of events. And that is a mix of changes of work design and change the worker.
Yep.
It's the technology has largely remained intact. It hasn't changed.
Okay.
It's a change management, change leadership function. And so, and it started with work as done versus work as imagined. So I'll give you one other example of work design that they changed. So they have a whole pile of 3-metre events involving people and forklifts at 3:00 every day. So they did a bit of investigating. They played back their CCTV footage. The SEEO gives you the actual event, not the whole context. So they played back the context on their CCTV camera system and went, there's a big crowd of people there. And the health and safety guy didn't know what that was about, so he asked the operations person, that's shift change, and they're charging devices. They're bringing their RT radios and their scanners and their tablets. And one side of the table is the shift that's finishing, and they're plugging in their devices for charging, and the other side are people who are coming to get their pre-charged devices to start work. So we have 60 people around this one spot, and forklifts buzzing around the outside of them. And so what they did was quite simply put in 2 more charging tables, separated the crowd, so there was a maximum of 20 in each place at any one time, which meant, and then put those charging tables behind barriers, so forklifts couldn't hit the people, and their data went just like that.
That's so interesting.
So it is the insights that you get from a 24/7 observer that are the most powerful thing.
So good, because it does. It raises questions, and I suppose it shines a light on company culture from the highest level all the way down to the men and women on the ground.
Absolutely.
And also shines a light on the true capability and strengths of their current health and safety management framework, right? Which I imagine, and you've kind of spoken to it. For some that would be quite challenging. I'm sure you've dealt with and overcome some of those challenges. For businesses that are looking at AI, they can recognize what it may mean for their companies. How are you helping them on their journey to appreciate what AI means for them and what it could potentially mean for them?
Look, we have some examples of it going horribly wrong.
Yes.
So we have examples of organisations that put it in and then don't use it. And I liken that to one day there's going to be an event and WorkSafe is involved, and all they're doing is cataloguing a whole lot of evidence for WorkSafe. So it's kind of like, what's the point? And then we have another example of an organisation who put it in, and when we were training SEO, because we train it for each site with their data, we uncovered an event, 2 events, and one of my engineers came in and says, "Look, have a look at this." And I looked at it and went, "Oh dear!" And it was that moment incumbent upon us to tell them, and this is before we'd even launched it.
Right.
And unfortunately, they rolled 5 guys into an office and sacked them.
Oh gosh!
As a result of this event. Now, look, it's gross misconduct. There's no question, and everyone who I've shown this event to, because they allowed us to share it, have said, "I said, what would you do?" And they said, "We dismiss them on the spot." But it was a lost learning opportunity. So what we're doing about this stuff is we're engaging in conversations almost at a contractual level. So we have a project we've kicked off this morning, and in our contract we have them agreeing to the change management aspect. So they're getting internal coaching on how to give feedback. They're we briefed the two managers today and I said, this is how you need to use this for best effect.
Yes.
I explained about the technology. And so, because people can get obsessed about the technology. So they go, oh, it didn't pick that up, or it false alarmed here or something, and start focusing on the technology.
Yeah.
And we go, okay, so granted, yes, it did. However, there's 350 events of real stuff. We should focus on that.
Yeah.
So saying this is 10% technology, 90% the rest of it's mature change leadership.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that involves how to give high quality feedback, how to provide coaching, an agreement to not use this as a stick. Now that's different. That's different when it's a gross misconduct situation where you have someone who is behaving in a radically dangerous way that needs to be dealt with as an employment situation.
Yes.
And we don't want to be in that situation, but that is sometimes what emerges. We are also beginning to engage with the union movement to as the voice of workers.
Yeah.
In order to educate and enlighten them to the power of this for the good of workers.
Yeah.
Because
Excellent.
Fundamentally, this is a good thing.
Yeah.
And it can be seen as a bad thing.
Yes.
Now, if it was productivity, if we were saying, oh, we can track smoko room times,
yes.
The union will not want to engage with us, obviously.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about ethics later on, but that is an unethical use.
Yes. Yeah, I guess it comes back to winning hearts and minds, right? So it's ensuring that the intended audience truly appreciate the value of what it is you're bringing. So it's not just the stick, it's not just we're a big brother with the cameras, but it's actually ensuring that there is a safe and healthy work environment for all.
Absolutely, and it's an understanding of workers often do not understand quite the risks they're taking. So you're in an environment that you inherit. So workers inherit the work design. They inherit the amount of space they've got that may be too small, or may be cluttered, or may be difficult, or the floor slippery, or whatever. They inherit that, and that is what they inherit. And they inherit the way the work has been designed to be done. That you stack the pallets on the boxes, or boxes on the pallets, or whatever the work is. And that way of working is there's a cultural blindness to it.
Yeah.
That it's always been done like that, so therefore it can't be improved, and it just is. And what when people see SEEO results for the first time, and they see themselves, and they see that they came within 20 centimetres of being bowled by a forklift as it reversed around the corner, it gives them pause, and they go, that's me.
Yeah.
And then we tell stories of, and this is a true story. This happened. A customer site where a truck driver was holding back a curtain. Should not have been there. Supposed to be in a truck driver safety zone. Thing fell off a pallet, almost severed his leg.
Yikes.
And telling those stories that people do suffer horrendous injuries because they're not doing what the requirement is for the critical risk control. So it's those insights that have massive impact on people's behaviour. They just go, I came within hair's breadth of potentially losing my foot. And that gives them pause, and then they go, well, if it's to be, it's up to me. And as long as you combine those conversations with also what are we doing about changing the work, and you have this mutual coming together of managers and workers, then the process works. If it's a managers start firing people, well, you're going to destroy any hope of anything. So there is an element of maturity. And I've seen people go, oh yeah, I'm using this to track AI stuff to track this and track that and blah blah, and it's like, I don't think it's going to end well.
Yeah.
Because you need people to meaningfully, the purpose of this stuff is not technology. The purpose is to meaningfully shift from a post-harm lag indicator world into a pre-harm lead indicator world.
Yes. Yep.
That's the purpose.
Yep.
And focus on that. And that means, talked about culture, each of those little video clips that SEEO gives you showing an event where you've got a person in a forklift or a truck driver not in the right place. Like last week, we had one where a truck driver was closing a curtain, and a truck drove through the canopy on top of the person. They would have driven past. That would have been that far.
Yeah.
Almost bowled them. Those are cultural artifacts.
Yes.
They are cultures represented in behaviour. It's represented in how people speak, how they think, and how they act.
Yep.
And those examples are Technicolor glory. This is a health and safety culture. And what happens over time as people intervene and they make work design changes and they work on changing the worker piece, is the severity of those events changes, and you start seeing forklifts stopping quickly when there's a person near, or you can see them communicating. So, and the salience of those events declines. And so you're now dealing with medium. Your medium stuff. And so if you believe that if you alter your lead indicators, that your lag indicators are going to follow, let's just say that that's true, you're meaningfully shifting I'll call it the threat of harm in the workplace. If you do that.
Love that. I love that. It's and data is king, right? And it's something particularly in the health and safety space where you're right in terms of traditionally it's all of the lag indicators, and we've always struggled to try and either agree on what the lead indicators should be, or trying to maintain those indicators and the numbers that go behind it. It's just always been a bit of a minefield.
Well, it's impossible. It's actually lead indicators are effectively impossible. It relies on people to see there's a problem. And so when you have cultural blindness going on, people don't see a problem. So first you've got to see a problem, and then you've got to get people to report it. And there's also issues around reporting. I like you. I see you doing something. I'm going to say nothing. And that never enters the lead indicator data.
Right.
And so AI is, without fear or favour, a reporter of doesn't care. Knows it's human, doesn't care who it is, human, truck, container, person, you name it, it will tell you about the goings on without fear or favour. So it's the ultimate lead indicator.
That's fantastic. And so so you've mentioned, so it syncs up with your CCTV system. So assuming they've got one, otherwise I'm sure you would probably supply.
I happen to know a security company that can assist with that.
Well,
that's called C Digital. There you go.
Funny that.
It will use the cameras you've got, or add more, or shift them if it's not looking at the right area. There's often you'll have security cameras that are operational, and they're occluded by half the wall, or you can't see the other side of the truck, so you need another one so you can see the other side, that type of thing.
Okay. Alrighty, so you've got the cameras, and then at the back end there's the software, and so that's gathering the data, but it sounds like there's also a bit of dashboarding and reporting at the back end. Is that right?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, so you're ingesting the raw data, which has been recorded. You're doing a whole bunch of AI stuff to it, and then you're spitting out the back of it into the SEO dashboard, which is how people interact. The events that SEO thinks you should look at, and the salience of those, and the data, the raw data, how many events.
Cool, and it sounds like
areas.
The framework to that is adjustable, so it suits the risk appetite for the company, right? So as they evolve and hopefully that salience score starts to reduce, they'll then have more priority on those moderate or medium types risks. I love that.
Because it doesn't pick up the high because they no longer resist.
Yes, fantastic.
And the ones that end up high, 5 months ago wouldn't have been.
Yes, yeah, oh, that's great. And you're taking the company on the journey. So whenever I'm following a lot of discussions on AI, I'm sure many people are as well. It's everywhere, right? We can't avoid this conversation now,
Yeah.
and for the right reasons. But one of the hot topics is around data security, individual privacy, corporate information. How are you navigating that?
Look, it's a big one. We're doing our best to get the standards required, SOC 2, etc., in order to prove to people that we take it seriously, and we take it desperately seriously. We do our level best to. So CEO's hosted in AWS, so we can leverage off their security technologies.
Sure.
The whole anonymisation is a really big topic. We don't anonymise faces, and we have a really good reason why.
Okay.
Firstly, a lot of our stuff we use 360-degree cameras, and you can't see faces, you just see humans. There's a raging, we'll call it debate, going on within health and safety. Is health and safety a collective thing or an individual thing?
Yes.
And my view, rightly or wrongly, is that health and safety is an individual thing, because individuals get hurt, collectives don't. Now, the collective, the group, Bob's work group, are going to be upset that Bob's lost his leg, but Bob's the one who's lost his leg. And the PCBU is actually a person, a director or a CEO. That's not a collective thing either. It's an individual thing. And so you actually need to know who the person is in the scene. You need to be able to go, it's a bit like, if you think back to when you're at school, how much did you like it when the naughty guy didn't get told off by the teacher? The teacher told off the whole class instead of confronting the naughty kid.
Yep. We've all been there.
We've all been there, right? So, and none of us liked that. So you need to be able to address the two people in the scene and go, Bob and Sally, come into this room, look at this. This is you. And the other thing is that, like the anonymisation, people know who it is.
Yeah.
They know who it is from the gait of the person's walk.
Yes.
Or the way they wore their high vis, or the fact they've got a little bit of an arch in their back, or everyone knows who it is. And they can be the size of an ant, and they know. And I remember years and years ago installing a big security system and going to train them in it. So this is 15 odd years ago, and playing back the footage and going, oh, they're going to reject this because you can't see a thing. People are the size of ants. And they went and looked at it and they went, what's Derek doing down that champagne aisle? What's he doing there? He's not supposed to be there. Oh, and they took down a note to speak to Derek about it.
Right.
And they knew, because Derek has a limp or something. So there's some identifier.
Yes.
So I think the reality of it is that, yes, we do our level best on that front. We know it's really important. And yes, we will do the facial blurring thing reluctantly, but we'll probably enable people to turn it off and on.
Sure.
And I think there's no fear, and there's nothing to fear about the identifiable data being used, as long as it's held securely. Of course, you don't want these events from CEO ending up in a YouTube channel of Health and Safety Live.
Yeah, of course.
That's the last thing you want.
Yes. Yeah. It's actually really refreshing, and I suspect will be quite reassuring as well, is throughout this whole conversation that there's been a common theme, and that is that it's all about the people, really. From the officers and the board of directors all the way down to the men and women at the coalface. It's all about taking them on the journey. And meeting them wherever they happen to be, at that, whatever their starting point is. I suspect there would be some businesses out there that perhaps, and you may correct me, but may not be currently ready to have this type of engagement and this type of conversation. But those who are either halfway there or on board already, it sounds like the benefits are phenomenal, and that perhaps there's a bit of a shock to the system at the early stages, right? It's great to hear, and particularly when I made the assumption, talking to you about software and hardware solutions, that it was all going to be about the data that we're gathering, and this is what we're finding. But actually, this is a story about change management. This is a story about bringing people on that journey, right?
Absolutely.
So good.
Yeah. Like good health and safety practice is there.
Yes. Yep.
You know, and unless you can identify a task and go, let's just say we've got a whole bunch of people manually packing pallets and coming off a conveyor belt. Like you can talk to the cars that come home about using your back like a crane and ergonomics and blah blah.
Yep.
Just replace the job and get a packing robot. Unless it's like that, SEEO can assist. You know, so there's some things that you just engineer the task to remove the people from the task.
Yeah, that's so good. And so, I mean, clearly you're at the bleeding edge of what AI is capable of doing, and you're watching the market, and you've probably got a better sense of what's on the horizon in terms of emerging trends and what's possible. So is there anything you could care to share?
Well, without sort of wanting to, I don't want to provide my true strategic insights.
But I have my notepad and pen ready.
because they matter. They matter. But I think if you look at the whole GPT world,
yes,
and you apply that to video, that's where it's going. So ChatGPT is it's ingested billions of data points of language data. So imagine what something like that could do with video and health and safety. And I actually saw a thing last night where I ended up on a call with a person who then had the founder of the organisation with her, and they showed me something, and I was like, "Whoa, this is the future." So one of the challenges with health and safety, and in fact with anything, with any data, whether it's maintaining staff or whatever, is that there's two domains. There's stuff we know and stuff we don't know, and there's stuff we don't know. And the future of AI is in that domain.
Yes,
where you have a scene, let's say a warehouse, and a health and safety person is going to know about certain controls that they need in place, their standard practice.
Yep.
But they're going to be oblivious to the fact that once every 2 weeks, something happens.
Yep.
A purple forklift delivers gas bottles, and those gas bottles might roll, and they regularly fall off the pallet and roll across the floor. So let's just say that's an event.
Yep.
That's an unknown. Don't know. But it's a catastrophic thing that could.
Yeah.
That if you knew about it, you'd do something about it.
Yep.
Current iterations of AI are known things. Whereas this is, and you in effect teach a computer to see that thing.
Yeah.
And that has the limitations of a human, like what humans can conceive.
Yes.
The next generation is going to be things that you don't even know about.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing now is really powerful, but that is going to be, it's going to weaponize it.
Yes. Yeah. And again, it's all about the delivery of that weaponized solution, right?
Yeah.
It could be used for terrible things, but in the right hands, with a bit of care, it can do phenomenal things as well. Right?
Absolutely. Like anything can be. You look at social media and algorithmic manipulation. My view is that social media is a profound evil. I think it's a net negative.
Yeah.
By far. I think this stuff in the right hands and used with the right safeguards is a net positive. But it can be put into the hands of a tyrant.
Yep.
It's a disaster, but it was a disaster before they got this tool.
Yes.
Right. So they're going to be they were a slippery character prior to this, and this just weaponizes them. And they could, and they do, sit there and play back footage, and they're trying to catch people out doing stuff anyway.
Yes.
So this is just automating that.
Yep.
And there's not a lot we can do about that other than try and have those conversations and try and build in contractual commitments to use it for good.
I love that, and that's been one of the key surprise takeaways for me actually today, is that you've got this wonderful software and hardware solution. You've got a great product, but there's also the key piece to the success here is around the change management and helping the users kind of work their way through the initial shock to the system, and then working out, okay, well, how do we move forward now, knowing what we now know? It's really neat. And so in terms of client feedback, so you've mentioned some clients' experiences. What has been some of the feedback that you've received over the last wee while?
Well, given that we're doing this, it's all awesome. It's amazing. Look, I've had the CEO of one of our clients stand publicly and say he would not run an organisation again without CEO.
Wow.
And he calls it, and they call it, our safety angel. I've had some people, I refer to it as a pain in the neck because it tells me stuff that I have to do something about, which is very inconvenient because I'm really busy.
Yes.
And my job's not health and safety. My job is getting boxes out the door or whatever it is. And that's all part of it. We have a constant stream of, can you do this? Could we get CEO to tell us blah, blah? And we get the odd request, and this is a true request that we had. Could we use CEO to tell us who the 10% of people are that constantly leave the processing floor and hang out in the smoking hut and in the toilets during a shift? And the answer is yes, we could, but no, we wouldn't. So we get lots of I'd like to know about X, Y, Z. Look, fundamentally, when people engage with the tool, they find it hugely beneficial. And when they see the data change, it's a miracle worker. The technology is not doing anything different. The technology is just it. We have an interesting scenario around real time. CEO is post fact. It's not reacting immediately, right? So, and it's an area that we're working on. We're working on doing, but I've always had a real reservation around it. And my reservation is you don't want to create dependence on a safety technology. So there is an example of a person who was recently a fatality who was killed by a backing forklift, and that organisation had a RFID device type system and a sensor on the forklift, and this forklift roars out, clobbers person, they die.
Right.
And the RFID device was flat.
Oh, right.
And so I'm forever mindful that actually what you're trying to do is create environments that people naturally keep their distance. It's a cultural behavior. It's a behavioural thing. Versus relying on catching people out in real time and then roaring out the door and going, hey, Derek, I saw you too close to that forklift or whatever, which ends up with health and safety people telling people off the whole time. And so people might go, I want real time. And my view, and I actually asked this, so this was a company in Perth, we want this real time. And I said, okay, so if you had an alert pop up in your app now, what would you do? I'd leave this meeting. I'd go out there and I'd tell them, and I'm like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I believe you. That's not people's normal behaviour.
Mm-hmm.
And B, really, is that the
Yeah.
best way to deal with this sort of stuff?
Yeah.
So knowing fast is good.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you want to know fast. But using it to then sound alerts and alarms and
Mm-hmm.
things like that, I just think from a health and safety practice perspective,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
my view is people who want that, maturity-wise, they're not there.
Yeah. Yep.
In their change management practice.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a great example, just to help piece that together. Because I imagine people tuning in right now would be wondering why live reporting wouldn't be desirable, but it's just for those reasons. It's like unnecessarily escalating individuals' responsibility levels as well. You just imagine, a member of senior management receiving that notification on their phone whilst being in the middle of a meeting,
Yep.
failing to respond to that in a timely manner. The responsibilities on their shoulders suddenly just goes through the roof. It's those small incremental changes that can have massive legal ramifications if not thought through. And that's why, once again, it's so reassuring and refreshing to hear that you are thinking at that level from a health and safety management framework. It's great because, again, I suspect you may see it yourself in the marketplace. There's lots of whiz-bang solutions out there which may not necessarily, I assume, be thinking at that level, and perhaps are potentially leading businesses down a quite high-risk pathway without actually truly understanding that. So it's great.
And explaining is losing from my perspective.
Yes.
It makes for a difficult conversation.
Yeah.
So when you are saying to someone, okay, so would you leave the meeting? And they go, yes, I would. Be like, well, actually, mate, I don't think you're telling us the truth. Let's get to the bottom of it. Really, are you going to?
Mm-hmm.
But that's a losing conversation.
Yeah.
So there's an element of we will have SEO real time, and that's a sales thing.
Mm-hmm.
Will we encourage people to use it as a real time like beating up tool? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But you'll know faster.
Yes.
But some use cases it does matter. So where you have an exclusion zone in a manufacturing plant where a person goes, climbs on the conveyor belt to clear something when it's not down powered, you really want to respond to that in real time.
Yeah.
And whether that's an audio alert or shut the conveyor belt, kill the power.
Yeah.
So there's some of those use cases, absolutely, and there's others no. So we want to do both, but we don't want to create this cycle of managers beating people up with sticks, running in and going, "Oh, I saw that." It's not conducive to a safety 2.0 culture.
Yes, yeah, I love it. I'm just thrilled for you. Congratulations!
Thank you.
It's such a neat tool, such a neat approach. I love the fact you're talking about safety too. You're talking about behavioural safety and how implementation of change has to include the key stakeholders, the business owners, all the way down to the men and women at the coalface. And I congratulate you.
Thank you.
It's wonderful. It's so good to hear. So for those who are now busy Googling and trying to figure out how to get in touch, how are they best to reach out to you, Bede?
So Bede, Bede, at SEEO.ai.
Wonderful.
So that's my email, or SEO.ai. You'll find us, or LinkedIn me. I'm been flat out building my LinkedIn network.
Yeah, doing a great job at it too.
I started. It's like LinkedIn is possibly not quite the net negative that other social media is.
Yeah, I think we're fellow LinkedIn users. That's for sure. It is. It's a great resource, great tool. So thank you, Bede. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for your honesty and sharing your stories. And I look forward to watching the business bloom. Yeah, because I'm sure it will. Yeah,
appreciate your time.
Thank you.